She covered her sister's shift as a maid and ended up meeting the CEO, single dad who needed her most. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let us return to our main character. The rain had just stopped when Lena crossed the wide iron gate of the Cole residence. The sky was still gray, and the air smelled of wet pavement and pine. She clutched her sister's old uniform in one hand, her backpack in the other. Her shoes squeaked softly on the marble steps. She had promised her sister, Mia, that she would cover this one shift, just one morning, until Mia recovered from the flu. Just clean the guest room, be polite, and do not talk too much, Mia had said between coughs. Lena took a deep breath before pressing the doorbell. Inside the house, faint sounds echoed footsteps, a child's laughter, the clatter of dishes. The door opened to reveal a man in a gray sweater, sleeves rolled to his forearms, his dark hair slightly tousled. He looked more like a tired teacher than the billionaire everyone in town whispered about. Ethan Cole did not expect anyone that morning. His usual housekeeper had called off, and he was struggling to convince his 7-year-old son, Oliver, to eat breakfast. When he saw Lena standing at the door, holding a cleaning kit, and trying to smile through her nervousness, he assumed the agency had sent her. "You must be the new maid," he said, his tone calm but weary. "Yes, sir," she answered quickly, her voice trembling. "Mia could not make it today, so I am filling in for her." Ethan nodded once, already turning back toward the kitchen. "Fine. The kitchen is a disaster. If you could start there, I would appreciate it." Lena followed him, eyes wide as she stepped into the enormous open space. Sunlight poured through tall windows, bouncing off polished counters and silver appliances that looked more expensive than her entire apartment. She placed her bag on a chair and rolled up her sleeves, pretending she belonged in a place like this. At the table, a little boy sat with arms crossed, a spoon untouched in his bowl of oatmeal. His brown hair was messy, his expression stubborn. Ethan sighed. "Oliver, please eat something." "I am not hungry," the boy mumbled. Lena hesitated, watching the tension between father and son. She knew that look, the quiet hurt that children carry when something is missing. Gently, she crouched beside the boy. "That oatmeal looks cold," she said softly. "How about we make pancakes instead?" Ethan turned, surprised. "That is not necessary." But Oliver's eyes had already lit up. "Pancakes?" Lena smiled. "If your dad agrees." Ethan exhaled slowly, a flicker of amusement crossing his face. "Fine, pancakes." As she whisked the batter, Lena tried not to glance at Ethan too often, yet she could feel his gaze lingering. She moved with quiet determination, humming under her breath, the smell of vanilla and butter soon filling the kitchen. For a moment, the house did not feel cold or lonely. When the first pancake landed on the plate, Oliver grinned and reached for the syrup. "This is better than oatmeal." Ethan chuckled, shaking his head. "You are easily persuaded, kid." "Maybe she should stay," Oliver said through a mouthful, and both adults froze for a second. Lena's cheeks warmed. She opened her mouth to explain she was not really the maid, but Ethan spoke first. "You did well," he said quietly. It has been a long time since he smiled like that. Lena looked at him, uncertain what to say. "He is a sweet kid," she murmured. For a brief instant, their eyes met his filled with exhaustion and something softer, hers with unspoken empathy. Then she looked away, wiping her hands on the apron. She told herself this was only one day of work, one favor for her sister, nothing more. But fate rarely listens to plans. Outside, the rain started again, a slow, rhythmic tapping against the glass, like the beginning of a story neither of them yet knew they were in. The following morning, sunlight spilled through the thin curtains of Lena's small apartment. The sound of the city below hummed through the cracked window, honking cars, distant chatter, the smell of brewed coffee from the cafe downstairs. She sat on the edge of her bed, still wearing the same jeans from yesterday, her mind circling back to the Cole residence. It was supposed to be one favor for her sister, yet she could not shake the image of the quiet man in the gray sweater, or the little boy who had smiled over pancakes. Her phone buzzed. It was Mia. "How did it go yesterday?" her sister asked between coughs. "Strange," Lena admitted. "The father is not what I expected. He seemed kind, but serious. Well, you did not break anything, right? Because Mrs. Alvarez said they asked if you could cover again." Lena blinked. "Cover again?" "Yeah, their agency called. The regular housekeeper is still out for the week. You should go. It pays double." Lena hesitated. She needed the money. Her rent was overdue, and her art supplies were almost gone. Maybe one more day would not hurt. By noon, she found herself once again at the tall black gate. This time, she carried a small lunchbox and her sketchbook tucked under her arm. The security guard waved her through, remembering her from the day before. The house looked brighter in daylight, its wide windows glinting in the sunday. Inside, Oliver was sitting on the living room floor surrounded by toy blocks, while Ethan typed at a laptop on the sofa. He looked up as she entered, his expression unreadable at first, then softening. "You came back," he said simply. "Yes, sir," Lena replied, adjusting her apron. "Mia is still sick." Ethan closed his laptop. "You can drop the formal tone. Just call me Ethan." She nodded shyly. "All right, Ethan." Throughout the afternoon, Lena dusted the bookshelves and polished the tall windows, occasionally glancing toward the child. Oliver watched her quietly for a while before asking, "Do you know how to draw?" Lena smiled. "A little. Why?" "Mom used to draw with me," he said softly. "But Dad says I am not good at it." Ethan looked up from across the room, startled. "I never said that, Oliver." "Yes, you did. You said it looks messy." The room fell silent for a moment. Lena knelt beside the boy. "Messy can be beautiful. You just have to keep drawing." Oliver's face brightened. "Can you show me?" Lena hesitated, then opened her sketchbook. Inside were pencil drawings, city corners, market stalls, and faces of strangers she had met. Oliver's eyes widened as she flipped the pages. "Wow, can you draw me?" She laughed softly. "If you sit still for 5 minutes?" Ethan watched from the background as she began sketching, her hand moving with quiet grace. The child's giggles filled the space, and something in Ethan's chest loosened a feeling he had not known in a long time. When Lena turned the sketch toward them, it was simple but full of warmth. Oliver's eyes alive. His smile real. Ethan studied it. "You captured him perfectly," he said. "It is just a sketch," she replied, blushing. "Still," he murmured, "you see things most people overlook." The afternoon sun stretched long shadows across the floor. Lena helped prepare a light dinner before leaving. At the door, Oliver tugged at her sleeve. "Will you come back tomorrow?" She hesitated. "If your dad wants me to." Ethan's voice was calm, but there was a trace of something behind it. "I think we would both like that." That night, back in her apartment, Lena placed the sketchbook on the table and stared at it. Between the pages was a folded envelope, the eviction notice from her landlord. Her heart sank, yet when she looked at Oliver's smiling face on the page, she felt a strange warmth. Maybe this temporary job could buy her a little time. Across the city, Ethan stood by the window of his home office, looking at the drawing Lena had left behind to dry. Outside, the lights of the city blurred into gold and silver lines. For months, his life had been built on silence and routine. But today, for the first time since his wife's passing, the house had felt alive again. He glanced at his reflection in the glass and whispered to himself, "Maybe it is not such a bad thing that she came by mistake." Somewhere between duty and coincidence, an invisible thread had begun to pull them closer, a quiet promise of change neither of them yet understood. Over the next few days, Lena's routine began to settle into a quiet rhythm. Each morning she took the same bus, walked past the same bakery with the cinnamon rolls she could not afford, and arrived at the Cole residence just as the first rays of sun touched the white columns. It was supposed to be temporary, but Ethan had never mentioned when she should stop coming. He simply nodded each time she appeared and offered a faint, grateful smile. Inside the house, Oliver followed her everywhere. He would wait by the door with his sketchbook, ready for another lesson. Together they drew trees, cars, and the family dog that had passed away years before. Lena never asked about the mother. She could feel the absence in the way Oliver sometimes fell silent mid-sentence, or in the way Ethan would look away whenever her name came up. One afternoon, while cleaning the study, Lena found an old photograph resting face down on the desk. She turned it over gently. It showed Ethan with his wife, smiling in front of a mountain lake. Oliver no more than 3 years old in his arms. The edges of the picture were worn, as if handled too many times. She set it back exactly where she had found it, heart aching. When Ethan entered moments later, she straightened up quickly. "I am sorry," she said softly. "I did not mean to pry." He paused by the desk, glancing at the photograph. "It is all right. Her name was Grace. She passed away 3 years ago." Lena nodded, unsure what to say. "Oliver must miss her very much." Ethan's voice lowered. "We both do." A heavy silence filled the room. Then, almost as if to break it, Oliver ran in waving a small paper airplane. "Dad, look what I made!" Ethan smiled faintly, taking it from him. "You did this yourself?" "Lena showed me how." Ethan looked at her, something unreadable flickering behind his eyes. Gratitude, perhaps, or something deeper. That evening, when her work was done, Lena sat in the quiet kitchen sketching by the light of a single lamp. Oliver was already asleep upstairs. Ethan came in, sleeves rolled up, pouring himself a cup of coffee. "You are still here," he said. "I was finishing this." She turned the sketch toward him. It was of the kitchen that morning, the sunlight spilling over the counter, Oliver laughing at the table. He studied it for a long moment. "You have a gift." She smiled faintly. "It is just practice." "Practice does not create that kind of heart," he said quietly. Outside, thunder rumbled in the distance. Rain began to tap softly against the windows, steady and rhythmic. Ethan leaned against the counter. "I have been meaning to ask, why do you work so many jobs?" Lena hesitated, unsure if she should tell him. "Tuition," she said finally, "and rent. My parents passed away when I was young. My sister helped me through college, so I am trying to help her now." He nodded slowly, the respect in his eyes unmistakable. "That is admirable. I know how hard it is to keep everything standing when life tries to pull it apart." The thunder grew louder, lightning flashing white across the windows. The storm rolled over the city in waves. Lena flinched as the lights flickered. Ethan noticed. "You should not walk home in that weather," he said firmly. "Stay until it passes." She wanted to protest, but the downpour was already roaring outside. He brought her a blanket and set a mug of tea beside her at the kitchen table. For a few minutes, neither of them spoke. The rain softened, filling the silence with a calm rhythm. When the power finally went out, the house dimmed to candlelight. Oliver stirred upstairs, calling for his father. Ethan rose quickly. "He gets frightened by storms." "I will come with you," Lena said. Together they climbed the stairs, the flicker of candles dancing on the walls. In the child's room, Oliver clung to his blanket, eyes wide. Lena knelt beside him, humming softly, the same tune her mother once used when storms frightened her. The boy's breathing steadied. Ethan watched quietly from the doorway, his expression softened by candlelight. When Oliver finally fell asleep, Lena turned toward the window. The rain had slowed to a whisper. Ethan spoke in a low voice. "You have a way of calming him. He has not slept through a storm since Grace died." Lena met his gaze. "Sometimes all someone needs is to feel safe." For a long moment, neither moved. Then Ethan said softly, "Thank you, Lena, for being here." She looked down, heart racing in a way she did not understand. "It is nothing. Anyone would have done the same." But as she left the room, she knew that was not true. That night, while she waited for the rain to stop, Lena sketched by candlelight once more this time, a drawing of the small boy asleep beside his father's hand resting on the bed. She did not notice Ethan standing in the hallway watching her. His face caught between sorrow and something that felt like hope. Outside, the last rumble of thunder faded into the distance, leaving the house wrapped in silence. Inside, something fragile and unspoken had begun to grow, like the first small light after a long storm. By the end of that week, Lena had become a quiet part of the Cole household. The house no longer felt cold or echoing. It sounded alive again with the faint hum of a child's laughter and the soft scrape of pencils over paper. Each morning she prepared breakfast with Oliver, while Ethan worked in his home office nearby. Every evening ended the same way, Oliver falling asleep as Lena read a story, her voice steady gentle, carrying peace through the long hallways. On Friday morning, Ethan appeared at the kitchen doorway with his phone in hand. "Lena, the company is hosting a family day tomorrow. It is meant for employees to bring their kids. Oliver has refused to go since his mother passed, but he asked if you could come." Lena froze, her hands stilling over the dish she was drying. "Me? I do not think that is a good idea." Ethan offered a small smile. "You have already done more for him than anyone has in years. If you come, maybe he will feel comfortable enough to go." Oliver tugged at her sleeve. "Please, Lena, you can draw with me there." She hesitated, then nodded slowly. "All right, but only if your father says it is okay." "I already did," Ethan replied, amusement flickering in his eyes. The next day, the sun returned after a week of rain. Lena wore a pale blue dress borrowed from her sister and tried to ignore the nervous flutter in her stomach. When they arrived at the event, the park was filled with tents, food stalls, and laughter. Children ran across the grass, chasing balloons that shimmered in the light. Ethan walked beside her in a crisp white shirt, every inch the calm, composed executive. Yet when he looked down at Oliver, his face softened. They joined a group at the painting booth. Oliver painted a crooked tree with bright green leaves while Lena helped him mix colors. Ethan watched from behind, his hands in his pockets, listening to the easy rhythm between them. A woman approached him, a colleague from the firm. "Ethan, it has been too long," she said brightly. Her eyes shifted toward Lena. "Is this your new nanny?" Ethan hesitated for a fraction of a second before answering, "She is helping out for a while." The woman smiled politely, but Lena could feel the weight of her glance. She looked down, pretending to focus on the painting, her cheeks warming. Oliver tugged on her arm. "Do not listen to her," he whispered. "You are better than any nanny." Later that afternoon, the crowd gathered near the main stage, where Ethan was called up to make a short speech. As he thanked the families and staff, Lena stood near the back with Oliver, clapping along. For a moment, she saw him not as her employer, but as a father, steady, kind, quietly caring, more than he ever said. After the event ended, Ethan found her by the playground. "Thank you for coming," he said. "You were right." He smiled all day. Lena laughed softly. "It was not me. It was the paint and the sunshine." "Maybe," Ethan said, his gaze holding hers. "But it has been a long time since I saw that look in his eyes." The late afternoon light fell golden on the park. Oliver chased a kite across the grass, his laughter echoing through the air. Ethan and Lena stood watching him, neither speaking, both lost in the simple beauty of the moment. When they finally returned home, the house was quiet except for the ticking of the hallway clock. Ethan turned to her at the door. "You have changed this place, Lena," he said softly. "And maybe you have changed me too." She met his eyes, unsure how to answer, her heart unsteady. "I am just helping out," she whispered. "Sometimes," he said, "help can feel a lot like hope." And for the first time, Lena allowed herself to smile without hesitation, unaware that this gentle peace was only the calm before everything would begin to change. The following weeks passed in quiet harmony. Lena continued to work at the Cole residence almost every day. She cleaned, cooked, and cared for Oliver. But it was the simple moments that made the days memorable, helping with homework, painting in the garden, or laughing over a spilled cup of milk. Ethan no longer kept his distance. He would join them at the table, reading reports while Oliver painted beside him, and Lena hummed a tune under her breath. The silence that once filled the house had turned into a rhythm of life again. One Saturday afternoon, Lena was folding laundry in the living room when Ethan entered, carrying 2 mugs of coffee. He handed one to her. "You work harder than anyone I know," he said. She smiled lightly. "That is because you have not met my sister." He chuckled. "Maybe not, but I know dedication when I see it." For a moment, neither spoke. The late sunlight streamed through the windows, dust motes floating like gold. Ethan's gaze lingered on her, softer than before. "You remind me of Grace sometimes," he said quietly. "Not because you look like her, but because of the way you care for people." Lena hesitated. "I am sorry if I ever overstep. I just want Oliver to be happy." "You have done more than that," he said. "You have given him back his laughter." Oliver ran into the room then, waving a small envelope. "Dad! Miss Lena! Look what I found in the mail." Ethan took it, frowning. "It is an invitation. The company charity gala next weekend." Lena smiled politely. That sounds wonderful. He exhaled. It is not, actually. These events are usually exhausting. But the board expects me to attend. He looked at her suddenly. Would you come? As Oliver's guest, of course? He refuses to go unless you are there. Lena froze, unsure if she had heard correctly. Me? I do not belong at something like that. You belong exactly where you are needed, he said. And that night, I think Oliver will need you there. A few days later, Lena stood in front of a borrowed mirror, wearing a simple navy dress her sister had helped her fix. The reflection staring back looked like someone she barely recognized, still her, but steadier somehow. When she arrived at the gala, the ballroom glittered with crystal chandeliers and soft music. Ethan met her at the entrance, dressed in a black suit that fit him perfectly. For a second, the world felt slower, quieter. You look beautiful, he said, his voice low but certain. Thank you, she replied, trying to hide her nervousness. I hope I do not trip in these shoes. He smiled. If you do, I will catch you. Throughout the evening, Lena stayed close to Oliver, helping him with small games arranged for the children of the guests. Yet every now and then, she caught Ethan watching her from across the room. Their eyes would meet, just for a heartbeat, and something unspoken passed between them, something fragile, like the beginning of trust. When the event ended, Ethan offered to walk her outside. The night air was cool, scented with rain from earlier that day. Thank you for coming, he said quietly. I should be thanking you, she answered. It was a beautiful night. He hesitated before speaking again. It has been a long time since I wanted someone to stay. Lena's heart skipped. She did not know what to say. The moment felt too big for words. She looked down, clutching her small purse. Good night, Ethan, she whispered. He nodded slowly, watching her walk away until she disappeared beyond the lights of the parking lot. For the first time in years, he felt something stir that was not grief, but the possibility of beginning again. Neither of them knew that the truth about who she really was, and what she had been hiding, was about to come to light very soon. The morning after the gala, Lena arrived at the Cole residence earlier than usual. The house was quiet, the air heavy with that strange stillness that comes before something breaks. She placed her bag by the kitchen counter and started making coffee. From the corner of her eye, she saw movement near the hallway. Mrs. Turner, the senior housekeeper, had returned from her leave. Her sharp eyes scanned Lena from head to toe. So, you are the one filling in for Mia, Mrs. Turner said, her tone cold. I checked the agency records. They have no Lena Monroe on file. Lena's heart stopped. I only covered a few shifts for my sister. She was sick. Mrs. Turner crossed her arms. That is not how this house works. Mr. Cole trusted you, and you lied. Before Lena could explain, Ethan's voice came from behind. What is going on? Mrs. Turner turned toward him. Sir, this girl is not an employee of the cleaning service. She has been here under false information. Ethan's expression shifted from confusion to disbelief. Lena, is that true? She swallowed hard, her hands trembling. Yes, but I never meant to deceive you. Mia was sick, and I only wanted to help her keep her job. Then Oliver, he needed someone, and you asked me to stay. His jaw tightened. You should have told me the truth from the beginning. I wanted to, she whispered. I was afraid you would send me away. Ethan exhaled, the hurt in his eyes clear. I cannot have someone in this house who lies to me, no matter the reason. The silence that followed was unbearable. Oliver came running into the room, clutching his toy airplane. What is happening? He asked, looking between them. Lena forced a smile, kneeling to his level. Nothing, sweetheart. I just need to go for a while. No, Oliver cried. You said you would not leave. Ethan turned away, unable to meet her eyes. I think it is best if you go now. Lena picked up her bag, her chest tight. She looked back once more at the man who had begun to trust again, and the boy who had found his laughter. I am sorry, she said softly, for everything. Then she stepped out into the gray morning. The rain had started again, steady and cold, washing over the driveway as if trying to erase her footprints. Inside, Ethan stood motionless, the sketch she had left on the counter catching his eye. Oliver's smile captured forever in pencil lines that suddenly felt like a memory he was about to lose. The next few days moved like a blur for Lena. She returned to her small apartment, its silence pressing against her like a weight. The sketchbook lay unopened on the table, pages curling at the edges from the damp air. She tried to distract herself with odd jobs, waitressing, tutoring, cleaning for neighbors, but everything reminded her of the Cole house. The sound of a child's laughter in the street made her heart ache. Across the city, Ethan buried himself in work. Meetings stretched late into the night, his temper shorter than usual. Oliver stopped smiling. The boy refused to eat breakfast, waiting by the window every morning as if expecting Lena to return. The house that once felt alive had fallen back into stillness. One evening, Ethan stood in his office, staring at the sketch Lena had left behind. It showed Oliver laughing under a tree, a faint outline of Ethan's hand on the boy's shoulder. Something inside him twisted. He had been angry, yes, but beneath the anger lay something else: regret. He had pushed away the one person who had managed to reach the heart of his home. He was still lost in thought when his phone buzzed. It was an email from the company's public relations department. A gossip blog had published a story titled, "Widowed CEO Involved with a Housemaid." Ethan's stomach sank as he scrolled through the article. There were photographs from the gala, him and Lena talking, smiling. The captions painted it as a scandal. Within hours, the news had spread. Calls poured in from board members, urging him to issue a statement. One executive even suggested suspending charity programs that Lena had helped organize. Ethan's expression hardened. "No," he said. "We are not punishing kindness." He spent the night drafting a response, one that defended her character without revealing too much. But when he tried to sleep, all he could see was her face when she had said she was sorry. Meanwhile, Lena learned of the article from her sister, who handed her a newspaper with wide eyes. "You need to see this," Mia said. "They are dragging your name through the mud." Lena's hands shook as she read. "I did not do anything wrong," she whispered. "I know," Mia said softly. "But the world loves a story that makes the rich look foolish." That night, as the rain beat against the window, Lena opened her sketchbook again. On one page she drew Ethan's house quiet, distant, with one window lit. On another, she drew Oliver, holding his paper airplane, watching the sky. Her tears smudged the pencil lines, but she kept drawing. She could not undo the past, but she could still honor what it had meant. The following morning, Ethan made a decision. He told his assistant to clear his schedule and drove through the rain to the small art center downtown, the one Lena had once mentioned. Inside, he found her helping children paint at a long wooden table. She looked up, startled, as he stepped through the door. "Mr. Cole," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. He shook his head. "Ethan," he corrected gently. "I should have listened to you that day. I was angry, but not at you. I was angry at how much I cared and how much I was afraid to lose again." Lena blinked, unable to speak. He placed a small envelope on the table. "That is a donation for the center. In your name. You were right about art bringing people together. I forgot that." She looked down at the envelope, then back at him. "Why are you here?" "Because I needed to tell you something in person," he said. "I am sorry for how I treated you. You gave my son his smile back. You gave me something I thought I had lost hope." For a long moment, neither moved. Then a child called Lena's name, breaking the silence. She turned back to the table, tears in her eyes, but a small, genuine smile on her face. Ethan left quietly, stepping into the soft drizzle. The weight in his chest had eased, replaced by something lighter resolve. For the first time in years, he knew exactly what he wanted to do next. A week later, the city's main gallery prepared for its spring exhibition. Posters lined the streets, announcing a special collection titled "Through Her Eyes." The event was hosted by the Carter Foundation, one of Ethan's company's major partners. Lena had helped the center prepare children's artwork for display, unaware that something larger was about to happen. That evening, she arrived early to arrange the last paintings. The room smelled of fresh paint and polished wood. Volunteers moved quietly between easels and spotlights. As she stepped back to check the placement of one drawing, her breath caught. Hanging at the center of the hall was her own sketch, the one of Oliver laughing under the oak tree. A small card below read, "Artist, Lena Monroe." Before she could process what she was seeing, a familiar voice spoke behind her. "It belongs there." She turned. Ethan stood at the entrance in a dark suit. holding a folder under his arm. The crowd of guests parted as he walked toward her. Cameras flashed. Murmurs rippled through the room. "What is happening?" she asked, her voice unsteady. "This," he said softly, "is the truth." He stepped up to the podium, and the music faded. "Good evening, everyone," he began, his voice carrying through the hall. "I want to speak about an artist who reminded me that compassion is not weakness, and honesty is not measured by titles. When my foundation began supporting community art programs, it was her idea to give children a place to paint, to dream, to heal." He looked toward Lena. "Her name is Lena Monroe, and she is the reason my family and I learned to smile again." "No." The audience broke into applause, but Lena stood frozen, tears filling her eyes. Ethan continued, "Many of you may have heard the rumors about me and a woman who worked in my home. Let me make something clear. That woman never sought attention, never asked for anything. She was kind when no one was watching. She gave my son back his laughter. And that is not a scandal. That is grace." The hall went silent. Even the reporters lowered their cameras. Ethan stepped down from the stage and walked toward her, holding out a small sketchbook, the one she had left behind weeks ago. "I believe this is yours," he said. "But I added something to it." She opened the cover. On the last page, in careful handwriting, were the words, "Through her eyes, we found our way home." Lena looked up, her voice trembling. "You did not have to do this." "I did," he replied, "because I needed the world to see who you really are." "Oh." At that moment, Oliver ran into the hall, holding a small bouquet of daisies. "Miss Lena," he called out. The boy threw his arms around her waist. "Can you come home now?" Lena knelt to hug him, tears spilling freely. "If your dad says so." Ethan smiled, his voice low but certain. "I think home has been waiting for you all along." The applause swelled again, as the lights above them softened to a warm glow. In the center of the gallery, among paintings and laughter, the distance between them finally closed. That night, when the guests had left, Ethan helped her take down the last frames. He turned to her, the weight of unspoken feelings resting between them. "Lena," he said quietly, "I do not want this to be a story about mistakes. I want it to be the beginning of something real." She met his gaze, her voice steady. "Then let it be real." And for the first time in a long while, both of them believed that it could be. The following spring, the small community gallery overflowed with visitors. Sunlight streamed through the tall windows, glinting off framed paintings that filled every wall. In the center hung a new piece, a watercolor of a family standing under an oak tree. The title beneath read, "Our Beginning." Lena stood quietly beside Ethan and Oliver, her hand resting in his. She had taken a position leading the Carter Foundation's youth art program, turning her passion into purpose. Oliver ran ahead, pointing proudly at the drawings made by children from across the city. "Look, Dad, Miss Lena taught us that one." Ethan smiled. "She teaches more than art," he said. Later that afternoon, as the guests left and the gallery grew quiet, Ethan led her to the same spot where her first sketch had once hung. From his pocket, he took a small box. Inside was not a ring of diamonds, but a simple silver band engraved with the words, "The Best Mistake." Lena's eyes filled with tears. "Are you sure?" He nodded. "Completely sure. You walked into my life by accident, but you became everything I did not know I needed." Oliver clapped his hands, grinning from ear to ear. "Does this mean you are getting married?" Ethan laughed softly. "Yes, it does." "Oh?" As the three of them embraced, the late afternoon light poured through the windows, turning the room gold. The world outside moved on, but inside that small gallery, time seemed to hold its breath. The story that began with a mistake ended not with regret, but with a promise, proof that sometimes the wrong door can still lead you exactly where you belong.